Anchor. I had no idea how he snuck up on me, but he did. And when he did, he made me suffer. I'd been running away for quite a while now, and I thought that I would escape, but I was wrong. I was paralyzed with fear, and somehow I could not get my feet to start working. For you see, he had that effect on me. The worst part was that there was no one around to help me, and it seemed that my screams were silent. Then he was upon me, and I started to find it hard to breathe. Just as he was about to finish me off, I woke up, gasping for air. That was the thing about sleep paralysis. It felt so real, each and every time. And when I woke up, I was certain that there was someone in my room who had been holding me down. No matter how much I tried, I could not get over the feeling of darkness that still lingered on my skin. The first time when I started to experience this, I was about 18 years old. I've never been one for superstitions, but I was certain that this dark entity had been in my room. I suffered mainly from sleep paralysis and night terrors, coupled with anxiety. I had not gotten the correct combination of meds yet, so my health was a bit of a train wreck. I was scared of a lot of things, and I'd been unable to shake the feeling of impending doom for a while now. It was getting worse in those couple of days, but I could not let my friends down. It was the end of the year, and we had decided to go on a camping trip in the camping site far from the city. It had been Rose, one of my friends, who had suggested that because she was the only one who liked nature a lot and had been nagging over several months for us to go to the site. There were going to be 8 of us there, including me. So my friends at the time consisted of Oliver, my best friend, his girlfriend Tina, one of my oldest friends Simon, Leo and his girlfriend Irina, Jason and his girlfriend Rose. I did not have a boyfriend at the time, so Simon and I were the only single ones. I ended up getting out of bed and going to watch a series instead of going back to sleep. I did not want to take any chances. Sometimes I managed to sleep peacefully, but most of the time I just got more nightmares. Later on that day, I met up with my friends so we could begin the drive to the site. Only 5 of us actually showed up to the meeting spot, and we waited for Oliver, Tina, and Simon. Simon sent me a message to tell me that he could not come because there was an emergency at work. He was a bit of a workaholic and was prone to canceling plans because of work, but I did not fault him. Later on, Oliver showed up, but he was alone. When I asked him where Tina was, he told us that they had just broken up, so now we were only 6. We got 2 cars and I ended up sharing with Oliver and Jason. Explained then that he had been having problems with Tina for a while now. She ended up refusing to go on the camping trip and wanting him to stay with her. They had a fight over it and she broke up with him. As you can see, the trip did not have a good start, and I felt as if my feelings of impending doom were justified. My best friend tried to act strong, but I could see that he was not doing that well. He had been dating Tina for over a year now, and she was not good for him. He was almost never happy whenever she was around him, but anyways, back to what happened. We drove for a couple of hours and arrived at the campsite soon enough. The 2 couples decided that they wanted to take a stroll around the site. It was in the woods, and we had managed to get a nice spot to camp. After setting up camp near a stream, we had a little walk. We kinda got carried away and time flew until the weather was not so good. We managed to rush back to camp, but the weather had gotten so bad and some of our stuff was trashed. We had 4 tents, mine, Oliver's, and 1 for each of the couples. Mine was completely ruined because it was one of the ones more in the open. Luckily, we got there on time to save the remaining tents. Oliver helped to get my stuff that was still in my tent and I moved it into his. I was pretty small, as he had bought a tent for a single person, which meant that we had to sleep really close together. That night, the weather did not improve, so we had to eat the non-perishables that we had brought in bulk and then go to bed earlier. The bad weather outside made me fidget for a few minutes until Oliver got tired and pulled me in close to him, so I was sleeping close to him. He knew of my condition, so he kind of knew the right things to say when it got too much. Eventually, I fell asleep and woke up the next morning. Surprisingly, I did not have a single nightmare during that night. I slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. I guess being with someone who cared for me helped me to relax. The next day, the weather was so much better and none of our tents were ruined because we had them behind a big boulder. We were only going to be there for 7 days and would return to the city, so we made the most of our time there. It was full-on survival mode, so that meant no electronics. We had left them in our cars. The only contact we had with the outside world was a walkie-talkie where we communicated with the owners of the site. It was a bit difficult to get used to it, but being out in nature was the best thing ever. It got us a lot closer together as friends and we were actually having proper conversations with each other. Rose had been at the site before, so she was sort of our guide, who showed us the best spots. We collected non-poisonous berries and went fishing in the nearby stream. Oliver and I were always glued to the hip, and it was no different then. We would go off on our own and explore the site sometimes, and we talked and caught up on each other's life. I ended up having to discard my tent in the end because it was so damaged, so I shared with him for the rest of the week. I was actually glad because of how I enjoyed his company. Most of the time, I fell asleep snuggled up to him because then I wouldn't have any nightmares. That was a strange thing about it. No one had ever made my nightmares go away. I admit, I started to see him in a new light during that week. I felt more open to him than I had in years, probably because my trust in him was growing stronger. I tried hard to stop fooling myself with thoughts that we would be more many times. As soon as the week ended, then it would be all over. We continued enjoying the camping trip with the others, but I guess I kind of felt lonely. I had been single for quite a while, and seeing Jason, Rose, Leo, and Irina made me long for someone. Often, I was the third wheel, with Oliver, of which I did not feel bitter, I just admired their strong relationships. Meanwhile, I did not want the trip to end, because I knew my nightmares would begin soon enough, as soon as we were out of the camp. But I could not do anything to prolong the week. On the 7th day, we woke up early to pack our things because we all had a few things to get back to in the city. The campsite is set up in a way that it continues on into a forest where no one goes because there are animals there, so there's only one exit. Well, as we were trying to leave, we saw that the entrance was destroyed because there had been a landslide. There was no way for us to pass. We used the phone that we still had to try and call 911, but the service there was bad. We left a few messages to our friends and waited after a while. We got a call and we were informed that it was not possible for us to be rescued yet, but they would be able to do so in about 4 days. So that meant we were stuck at the site for much longer. We had no choice but to return and set up camp once again. We did not have that much food left, so we had to ration it, and we had gotten sick of fish. I did not take the news of us being stuck well, and I ended up having a terrible panic attack because my feelings about the trip had been confirmed. The others tried to help, but they were not used to dealing with me when my anxiety was that bad. Luckily, Simon was there for me, and he convinced me to go with him for a walk. I calmed down a bit, and he distracted me with some talking, leading to me feeling a whole lot better. We ended up being gone for a little while longer. During that time, he asked me an interesting question. I did not think much of it until much later. He asked me if I had always had an attraction to guys or if it was something that I had realized as I grew older. I explained to him that I had always had a feeling that I was not quite myself, but my environment kind of forced me to convince myself I was not gay. As I grew older, my feelings towards men grew stronger, and I realized I did not have an attraction to guys. I came out as gay when I was 17 years old. He changed the topic soon after, but I could see that he was deep in thought. Even though he managed to calm me down, the anxiety crept up on me in the night, thus transferring into my dreams. I had multiple nightmares about us being trapped in the forest and getting eaten by bears. I had to wake up multiple times, and unfortunately, he woke up too, since he was a light sleeper. He did not complain though. He held me and reassured me that everything was going to be fine. During those 4 days, the entire group's mood had kind of dampened. Rose and Jason tried to keep us all in good spirits, which succeeded to a certain extent. Oliver and I both discussed how they were such a good couple one day, but I could not help wishing for that as well. No one could blame me. They were the power couple of the group and a good example of a healthy relationship. I had a brief stint with the Boy Scouts growing up, so I helped Oliver, who had grown up in the city his whole life, with some things like finding food and survival tips. And he helped me to keep me sane throughout the whole situation by going out of his way to check up on me and taking me for walks when my panic attacks got too much. The other couples were each other's support system throughout the entire ordeal, so we became each other's support systems. It began in little things, small touches and glances exchanged between us. And then they lingered a bit more, and the conversations got deeper. I found myself reaching out to him at night when I found that he was not close to me. I could hardly explain the connection that we had. On the 5th day, we were finally rescued. Simon had come with the emergency services to fetch us, and it turned out that it had been him who had called when we told him that 911 was not going through. He apologized for not being on the trip, but there were no hard feelings for us. After the trip, it was back to our normal lives, which meant that I could not spend all the time with Oliver as I wanted, but we still hung out regularly, where I found it difficult to control my feelings towards him. Sometimes I felt like he returned my feelings, but other times I thought I was just imagining things and he did not want to be with me in that way. Yes, my mind has always been my pain. One day, he came to my place to let me know that Tina wanted to get back together with him. I acted happy for him, but deep down, I was heartbroken. But then he told me that he did not want to get together with Tina. I asked him why, since he loved her, but he said he was not sure that he loved her like he was supposed to. That night, he confessed a few things to me which left me with a lot to unpack. He let me know that he had always had an identity crisis, feeling like something was wrong, but he fought it. Due to his parents being so involved in his life, he convinced himself that he was someone he was not, and that those thoughts he had were just merely thoughts. Then he told me that when he met me for the first time and saw how open and confident with who I was, he began having a lot of questions. That soon led him to investing less in his relationship with Tina. That made me remember the question he asked me about how I knew I was gay during our camping trip. So I asked him if he was gay, and he said, "Surely you've been feeling what I've been feeling this past few weeks," which I guess was his way of explaining to me that he was gay, and he had feelings for me. That made things change between us, and we spent the whole night talking, with him explaining to me everything that had happened in his childhood. By him opening up to him, I fell deeper for him, for I'd never met someone so tender before. Oliver and I started to date, but secretly. He was not ready to come out to his parents or the world yet. I admit it sucked being unable to be a proper couple in public, but love made me stay, because something told me that it was worth it. Soon enough, he had a meeting with his parents when they came into the city, and he told them that he was gay. As expected, the initial reaction was not welcoming, because they had known him to be straight all of his life. Our friends were actually not surprised about us revealing that we were a couple, especially Rose, who was so good at observing people. They were very supportive of our relationship, and helpful when we faced the problems that new couples often do. A few years down the line, we ended up getting engaged. We were certain that we wanted to spend our whole lives together and saw no point in waiting since we had just moved in together. Rose and Jason had already gotten married and had a little baby. When we were babysitting one day, we thought that it would be nice to have our little family, so then we decided to get married, and the rest was history. "But how was the wedding?" Laura said. "And how did Dad make up with Grandpa and Grandma?" Jean, who was about to fall asleep, added. It was impossible to get anything past those two. They were so inquisitive and kept on interrupting me throughout. "Hurry up, hun," the babysitter said. "She's on her way." Oliver popped his head through the twins' bedroom door. "Dad, let him finish the story, please," pretty much begged. Oliver mouthed 5 minutes and disappeared, leaving me with our two sons who were desperate for the rest of the story. So I continued. We invited his parents, but we were not expecting them to come. They were surprised by us attending. After the wedding, the relationship was mended and I got to know them better as well. A few months after we got married, we started the process of adoption and we really bonded with twins who were 6 months old. "That's us," Jean exclaimed. "Shh," Laura pocketed her brother. "We lived happily with them and continue to cherish each day. It seems like yesterday when all this happened," I said just as their favorite babysitter entered the room. I said goodbye to them and went to my husband, who was waiting for me in our living room. It was our 12 years anniversary and we planned to have a night out together. He beamed when he saw me and he made our way to the car. I managed to get a proper help for my sleeping conditions, and with a change to my diet, I have not had sleeping problems for years. My anxiety does flare up sometimes, but it's usually caused by our troublesome twins. The end. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.